This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lance. Today, co-hosting with me is C.R. Rice, and our amazing guest today is J.B. Garner. Woo! Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking first so people can drink along. And if anybody has words for me on the show, I'm just saying I've become slightly addicted to this recently, so it's my little thing. It's Angry Orchard Hard Fruit Cider Mango Peach. It is really amazing, and I drank way too many of those today. Okay, what are you drinking?
So I switched it up. I'm doing Gatorade and vodka because I need electrolytes to stay hydrated.
While you're drinking vodka, I like that. I like that. That's adulting. That's adulting. JB, what are you drinking?
I'm on the cider kick as well. We've got some Cider Boys Peach Country. These Cider Boys is amazing stuff. They've got all sorts of different flavors, but really good stuff. I would definitely suggest picking some up.
I agree. My cider choices, that's one of them. This one I like because I was a fan of Angry Orchard, but I used to cut it with whiskey all the time because it was a little too sweet. I know. It's okay. Life hacks here on Drinking with Authors.
that is amused laughter, not judgmental laughter. Don't worry. That's the kind of thing I do.
Most specifically honey jack, but then I found this, and it's actually doesn't have to be cut. It's more like the Cider Boys, where it's not quite that intense sweetness that ends up like, well, you can drink 4 of them and then you need Gatorade, so that happens. Okay, JB,
that's why you mix the liquor with the Gatorade, and you don't have to do that.
I think that is actually one of the most brilliant things I've heard today. I'm just gonna say, because I've never met vodka with Gatorade, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, maybe
it's amazing.
I believe you 1000%. Okay, JB, for those out there that maybe don't know who you are as an author, can you talk a little bit about what you write?
Sure. And that's probably most everyone, so it's best to get this out of the way now.
We're not doing self-deprecation on the show.
Right, that was so mean.
Can I do it for comedy? I mean,
we're always down with the comedy.
Good. Yeah. So, I write all sorts of stuff. I'm very eclectic range. It's all genre fiction, science fiction, fantasy. Generally, I guess I can't even say that. But I've written over a dozen novels, ranging anywhere from like I said, I run the gamut. Wherever my particular whimsy strikes me at the moment is where I generally go to. I've written superhero fiction. I've written high fantasy. I've written middle grade fiction. I've written a pro wrestling drama. I mean, I've written a ton of stuff. So I don't like to be in a box, I guess.
I know. Apparently you don't even like to be in a room that has a box in it, which is totally fine. Where did you start?
Okay, well,
because all the way back to the beginning, my friend.
Yes, let's take it from the top. So I've always wanted to write, but obviously when you're in school and college, no, that's a way to become a poor person. So I spent my early work years doing like manual labor, construction work, factory work, all that sort of thing. Always wrote for fun, but never thought it would really amount to much of anything until, 2014, 2013, 2012, right around there, when the construction bubble burst. When the housing bubble burst, the construction bubble burst. I was working at the time for a crane company, the big construction cranes, big tower cranes. Fantastic company. I will never not laud their praises, because even when the bubble burst, they tenaciously tried to keep everyone working and paid for. But eventually, they had to do layoffs. And I got laid off. And I'm like, and because that's what I've been doing for so long, like there was no jobs. So after searching for work for a while, I'm like, I always wanted to try to write. Self-publishing was really coming into its own at that point. With Smashwords, and Amazon KDP and all that. I'm like, while I'm looking for a job, now the application's out, why don't I try writing a book? So because I'm an overachiever, I wrote 2 books at the same time and published them both within like, I think a couple of weeks of each other. I'd have to go back and look at the dates. And I have bumbled and stumbled and drunkenly rolled my way through the indie publishing world since then.
Wow, that's very, very cool. So the first one came out in 2012?
Hold on, I might be able to tell you. I should actually look. I can literally just pull up my
Are you
dashboard.
Googling yourself? Is that what we're doing?
No, I'm checking my Amazon dashboard because it has like
Oh,
everything.
yes.
So it'll literally tell me date submitted. I'll have to go all the way in the Wayback Machine. Boop, oh, jeez, so many pages. So many pages.
How many pages?
Really?
I
Okay. That was
actually-
I've been doing this way less time than I thought I was.
Wow.
Wow, geez, how time flies. 2018 was apparently when I published my first book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I started writing in 2016. It would have to be, because it took me about 2 years of bumbling and fumbling before I got the first book out.
Well, that's always a journey. So you put the book out and you're like, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to do this thing.
I was so bad at it to start with. Not the writing part, though I'd argue probably that too, but everything else about the business, knew nothing, stumbled through it all. It's hilarious.
So what was the first book you put out?
My first book I put out was Indomitable, which is the first book of the Push Chronicles. It's a superhero / alternate reality story. It's still available. Like, I finished the series. Wordfire Press picked it up after I had been self-published for a bit. I'm probably gonna put it back out again under myself when my contract expires. But yeah, that was my first book, and then followed immediately after, like within like a couple of weeks, by The Opening Bell, which is the first book in 3 Seconds to Legend, which is a pro wrestling family drama action adventure series. That's also finished. I'm doing a webcomic adaptation of it now. Then I just sort of kept going on. Once I finished those 6 books, because the 3-book series, then I just started kind of messing around with stuff.
What are you working on now?
What I'm working on now is the sequel to my latest book series I started, which is Godshard Odyssey, which is a series that is part of a shared universe that another local author, Elman Dean Todd, started, the Godshard shared universe stuff. He's writing one series and some supplementary material. I'm writing another series that they're occurring concurrently in time. He's also working on like a prequel video game. I think it's going to be hitting Kickstarter sometime soon. They've done a lot of the asset work. Matter of fact, we're looking for more. Matter of fact, he's looking for more authors. I guess we're kind of partners in it. Is looking for more authors to write in the world. Wants to do we're working on a short story anthology, trying to recruit people for that. So yeah, first book came out right just before Pensacon this year, so I guess April. And I'm working on book 2 now.
Wow. And what is the theory of the world?
Okay,
so listen to this show. Let's talk about it a little bit, because maybe some will contact you.
That's actually a great idea. So Godshard is epic fantasy. The main conceit of the world, outside of a lot of the usual fantasy stuff, is that in a I have to check the exact. I'm gonna check a timeline, so I'm not gonna worry about that right now. Because several thousand years before the current date, a great celestial war happened, and all the gods on this world of Alban, either died or fled. So it's a world with no gods, but everyone remembers the gods. And the gods that did die Their essence that was left behind, or these crystallized essence called God shards, hence the title of the series. The big, I guess you could say, meta plot that is happening in over the course of these several series concurrently is that there is a figure who is called a Dark Lord that is trying to collect these God shards for some, most people assume, nefarious purpose. And the main series, the series that Elman's writing, God Shard Chronicles, is very much focused on the conflict with Dark Lord Malice and like the Mennonites, which is your peacekeeping group of noble warriors that use magic and cool stuff like that. While my series Odyssey is sort of, that's all taking place in the central area of like in the central kingdoms that are much more traditional, like Western fantasy. While Odyssey takes place a fair bit away from that and is more sword and sandals barbarian. I modeled a lot of the cultures and stuff off of like steppe nomads and the like. So it is civilization meeting supposedly uncivilized people. Very Red Sonja Conan-esque.
Very cool. So what does one do if one wants to write in this world? Because this reminds me a little bit of what George R.R. Martin and Snodgrass put together with their Ring series. It's similar, kind of what you're saying, with multiple authors. That's what I mean by the similarity, not the storyline. I'm just saying,
yeah,
they got a bunch of authors to write in on this series that they were doing.
Yeah, you've got that. You've got like Wild Cards, I always mispronounce it, Merovingian Knights. There's the whole shared world things. But two, if you were interested in getting in on it, if you're an author, contact me or Elman, or I believe there's a link on the God Shard website about this. Hold on, let me make sure before I talk out of my side of my mouth. Yeah, the best way to go would be to go to godshard.com. There is a contact link that includes also like, it's not only for people asking about the books, but authors looking to write for the series, other inquiries or stuff. But yeah, that would be the best way. That'll get you directly in contact with Elman, so he can like look through it. I'm sort of also kind of like helping with like sort of the, not quite, but like as a acquisitions editor. So you could also contact me directly. I think my email might be with, and contact info will be at the podcast.
It will be.
You
can absolutely reach out to you. So this is exciting. How far reaching are you guys trying to make this go?
Well, we are dreaming big. Like I said, currently there's a video game in development, full on JRPG style, 8-bit, 16-bit throwback. Merch at Pensacon. I know you guys are checking out like all the authors, like the statues.
People, that's what we do.
Yeah, so you guys probably saw the Althea statues. He basically had a modeler like it's the female lead from the Chronicle series. I actually have one. I need to actually put together. I actually need to put together and put it with my like Chotsky stand. But they're talking like full merch, t-shirt, the whole line. Basically, he wants to try to take it as far as we can take it, and I'm like, I'm game for that.
That's super exciting. So how many books are out in this series now?
Currently, between the two of us, there's 3 books. There's Cursed Night, which is the first book in Chronicles. There is Dark Pariah, which is sort of a prequel side tale to series, and Goddess Tier, which is Odyssey Book 1. Blood Knight, which is Chronicles Book 2, should be out early next year, as well as right after that, Odyssey Book 2, which I am still waffling on a title for, but got some ideas. I'm bad with titles, and so almost always the last thing to go unless it's a pun. Puns I seem to immediately come up with.
Well, you and the Xanth series, you would have been fantastic,
Well, I mean, I do have an urban fantasy comedy series that was partly inspired by Xanth and the Myth Adventure stuff Robert Aspirin and now Jody Lynn Nye are doing. And it's all the titles are puns, of course.
But that is ironic because yesterday I was with Jody Lynn Nye.
Jody's amazing.
I love Jody. Jody's a huge fan of the show. She had so much fun. I got an email from her husband at the time, and it was, my wife said I had to be on your show if you'll take me. And yeah, that was so much fun. Okay, so back to your writing career. So authors interested, shameless plug, please reach out.
Godshard.com.
Godshard.com. Listen, I drink and I know things. Not all the names. It's fine. Thank you, CR, for jumping in there. So let's go back. So when you were younger, you wanted to be a writer, and they said, you can't make money doing anything artistic. That's what most people say these days. So I'm going to throw writing in that bag. And then, did you write it all when you were younger, or were you a gamer? Like, where did your... Okay, you were a gamer. Okay,
he was a gamer.
I literally an hour and 20, and literally at 5 o'clock, I finished up a game session with some friends before this call. So yeah. And let me be clear, like, my parents never looked down on the dream. It was more general societal stuff. I thought I wanted to be a teacher originally, and I'm so glad I didn't do that. I do not have that kind of temperament, that kind of patience. I greatly respect anyone that's a teacher because I respect parents greatly as well.
Yeah, both things are so true. So did you write though when you were, I was a gamer back when you had to color in the dice, so I feel you on this one. Did you write back then?
Absolutely. I mean, I wrote all sorts of little stories and side stuff, and I think I wrote like a 30-page when I'd be the kid that we're going to do a creative writing assignment in English, and it's got to be 2 pages, and I turn in a 30-page one. So I guess it was kind of the writing was on the wall from an early age, just didn't accept it.
Yeah.
You kept any of the stuff that you used to do in your creative writing class and tried to turn it into something more?
Oh, I wish I did. But no, not really. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised though if I did have any of those things and I could pull them out, and I could pull them out now. There probably are things. There are probably nuggets and kernels of stories, of ideas that have permutated. I think that's a word. If it's not a word, I've been drinking
fine.
alcohol.
It is now.
It can be a word or it can be just sounds. We're okay with sounds.
Yeah. But permutations thereof you could probably find the strands of DNA from those early writings until now. Because I mean, it's just refinement, isn't it? You have ideas, and you always want to get those ideas on paper when you're young. As you get older, you get the ability more and more to produce those ideas and make them coherent and good and strong, as opposed to
flat little kid work.
Yeah.
I like that. I have to say though, I think all of us that have written from when we were younger and continued to write, it's a muscle. You have to grow your muscle. So you're going to write ridiculously bad shit. You just have to hope that it continues to get better. Some people it does not, but most people it does get better because it was interesting. One time I was talking to somebody about doing 5Ks. This was a while ago. And I wanted to get into running 5Ks, and I was like, okay, how do I build up my stamina? And it sounds really dumb now that I'm saying it out loud like this, but the guy was like, just run and stop when you're tired, and then run and stop when you're tired and run. And it was like, it sounded so ridiculous. And I was like, oh, there's got to be more. There's obviously things and gizmos and energy drinks. I don't know. There's all this stuff that can go with. No, it's just run, and you'll get better and you'll get faster and you'll be able to breathe better and be less hard on your body. Like, just run, just right. You get better at it because, I think it's also interesting when you go back to look at the stuff that when you first published it, do you see a radical difference from now? Not just skill wise, but
the immediate laughter.
view wise, like how you look at life and how you look at writing now.
Yes, certainly. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, obviously, your skills refine. It's been, this is 3 or 4. This is like 4. We're getting on to 4 years later, 5 years later of writing, and dozens of books. And I won't talk about the hundreds of books I've edited. Yeah, there's definitely improvement, and there are some shifts, but at the same time, there is, there's a core something. There's a through line that like you go. This all came from as varied and wild as sometimes the concepts go. There is one mind that's kind of been through it, and I honestly like in fact the other day I was like looking at some of my old stuff because doing a webcomic adaptation, I work from the original novel but then adapt and change anything that needs to be changed because different mediums. And I'm sometimes surprised at how much of my initial stuff still holds up. It's I see where I have improved at the same time. Like I'm like, that wasn't that bad. There's a reason why people still like this.
Well, I think it's key as a writer that you don't bash your previous work. Like you shouldn't bash your previous work. You get better. I find more that we grow, we have life experiences that change us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very happy that I don't have like I'm overdue on 2 manuscripts right now, but they're recent manuscripts and they're not something that I've been trying to write for like 5 years, because you'll never get that out the door if you let so much life happen in between your story, because you change and your view changes.
Absolutely.
And some things, and it's not the writing skill set, it's like the story and how that story starts morphing in your brain, I think.
Yeah, you can sometimes come out to where you had this conception, and then if you let it linger too long, you get to the end and like, I don't think that's how it should be anymore. I don't resonate with this concept or this conclusion. And so you either have to change it to fit your new what you're in, or try to force it, and forcing it doesn't work. I mean, it could. You may finish the novel, and other people might tell you that it's fine, but anyone who like knows, it'll probably just come out, because you can tell when a writer's not got their heart in something when you're reading it. Like I said, I have read hundreds of books for my editing work, and you can tell when a writer's not. We like to call it, writer concept alignment. Like when the writer is no longer jiving with the concept they have, and you can feel the divide where like on the technical level, this writing is still here, but the passion and the creative energy is like here. And then that's when you just need to go, okay, we need to as an editor, I need to sit down with this author and go, something has gone wrong. And it's not that you're doing a bad job. You're not a bad writer, but something has happened to break you from your concept, and we need to figure out how to get this back together, or you need to do something else, because this will come out in the wash and your readers will be upset.
Wow, we got really deep there right before the commercial break, so we're gonna step away, refill our drinks, and we'll be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers Spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
Okay, so we're talking about concepts. It's actually interesting you say that because I think that can hold true with series writers. I sometimes wonder if writers get so trapped in a series that they're writing, and that's what the fans want, that they go down this whole path and you're like, what the hell is even happening anymore? You know?
So I can, okay. Insight time. Because I have a lot of, again, I edited a lot of books. I have a lot of experience with series writers too. Okay, so I will not be using actual names because I have contracts and NDAs and stuff, but I can talk in broad terms. So, I mean, we all know that ghostwriting's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of big name brands out there that have multiple writers in a series, all the same name. So I'm talking as an editor that's been involved in some of these projects. You will often have that where like someone has written like 7 books in this 20-book series. Well, I mean, indefinite. We're talking like pulps like the old days where like, you know, the publisher's like, we're gonna print these books until people stop buying them. And you'll get like, you know, a writer that started a series gets around book 7 and you can tell like they're going, and it's not even necessarily, I mean, it can be like they're going down a rabbit hole, or they're just burnt out, they're disconnecting. And yeah, sometimes it's like literally it's like they get the series gets passed to another writer that's more aligned with it. And it's a sad thing because you don't want to be the writer who goes to like the publishers like, yeah, I don't know. I think they're really not in it, and we need to talk to them and like go, hey, are you happy doing this? Because fortunately, some of the primary publishing company I work for, which again I cannot say because of non-disclosure agreements, they're very big about happy authors, and aligning and making sure the writers are writing what they want. So I mean, it's always like we gotta, you know. They're not burnt out, but just burnt out the series. It's like we can't. The financial bottom line says we can't stop writing. This series must continue. But then you have to like the difficult business. There's that difficult where business and creativity like butt heads really hard, and you have to like. You need to like find them a place, talk to them about a concept that they will respark the creative fire, but we'll still sell books. I'm not a marketing guy, but I have to deal with marketing a lot. And then you have to find that writer that can continue, that aligns with this series, that can keep writing in the vein of the person that created it. It's really hard. It's not easy. But
yeah. I can say with total honesty, and it's because it's my show, I am not a fan of ghostwriters. I think doing
I'm
that.
not either. That's
so
cheating. That's cheating. Okay. You can't do that. Like ghostwriting is one of those things where like it's great to like, you know, if you want to help bounce ideas off, if you want to have somebody like kind of help you work through something cool. But like ghostwriting, that's cheating. You can't do it.
So I'm gonna have to be the heel here and take the heel heat for this, but okay, so it depends. We're gonna have a big if here. I do not like people who hire ghostwriters to write under their personal name.
Right.
Because I think that is lying.
Right.
However, there is a whole line of ghostwriting that is in the vein of like your Nancy Drews and your Hardy Boys, where everyone knows this isn't a real person. This is a brand name.
Right.
To write this. And then it's like everyone knows, so it's not. And that's the thing that I feel is.
But that's different. You know what I mean? Like you're creating a persona. Right, that's different than being like, I'm whoever, and
right. No, I agree, which is why it's like a differentiation. I think that's important because, so I'm going to be honest, like making your living as a writer is very, very hard. And the few publishers out there that try to approach ghostwriting in that honest way and to give writers jobs that they might not otherwise get is like, I mean, like, again, when I first got involved with actual publishing companies as the editor, that was a hard line for me to figure out, the ghostwriting thing. I was very like, this is just like, it's just like wrong. But then, having also been the opposite, seeing some of these companies, the very upfront and honest ones that have given a lot of struggling writers who would never get a chance to make a living as a writer get their start in the business and actually be able to, like, put a roof over their heads and feed their kids, and until they are strong enough to be able to go out on their own and start their own writing careers. It's made me have to, like, it's that whole like principle versus pragmatism thing of, this companies do, these people, some of these publishers do a lot of good, but there is still that like principle of like, you don't wanna, it feels wrong, but it's also doing people a lot of good. So you're like, it's difficult. It's always a thing you have to question yourself about,
It's true. And somehow we went dark totally again. Okay.
we did. I was just thinking, like, that is twice.
That's twice. We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back here. So
yeah, let's get like fluffy.
You're doing a bunch of editing. I have a lot of editorial friends, and it's really interesting, especially those that are writers. Some are not, some are just editors, but the ones that are also writers, how do you find that when you really started getting into that? I have this stray hair, sorry. Where did you find that? I'm like, it's shiny. Where did you find that balance for yourself? Because as a writer and an editor, I don't know. So that's the question. How did you find that balance on being able to write and being able to edit? Because my editor friends that are writers too, obviously need editors as well. Not that
Yes.
they're fairly clean, but they do weird shit too that their editors are like, stop having everybody shrug. Like,
how many nods can there be in a page?
Yeah, exactly. There are words that you should just do Control F. Every author should have a list of words that are Control F that they go look through when they think they're done with their manuscript. Nod and shrug are two of them.
Yes, absolutely.
But if you think about it, those are things that you do all the time anyways. Like, how many times during this conversation have you just like nodded your head, shrugged?
Like, nod and shrug for when one author did that Control F. It was a pretty large book. It was like 100,000 word manuscript, but it showed up 147 times.
That's
an excessive amount of nodding happening.
Do you know how much I've nodded in this video?
Sure,
now you're
but
just keep doing it.
See,
I am.
But the editor in me would say there is a better way to express that. Like if you were like, if someone was just nodding through a whole thing, you would do it like one, like as a start of a dialogue thing, you'd be like, they started nodding and they started nodding, and then maybe like a paragraph down, like at the end of their first bit of dialogue, they might say, and they just kept nodding. And then you assume the default is now they are nodding. So you don't need to like every go, And then even then, sometimes.
Oh, your sound cut out. You're talking and we can't hear you. What happened? The Illuminati is in the microphone.
Right?
What happened? That was weird.
It just got weird. That was a little bit weird.
I'm not gonna lie. I was watching this documentary on Netflix about the devil among us, or the devil you know, or something. And one of them's about reptilian. This woman who kept saying that we were invaded by aliens already, and people were taken over into lizard people, and they could automatically change. It's really bad. I was watching that right before I did this podcast because.
I was watching The Mummy.
Oh wow. Okay, are you back, JB? Are you back? Oh no,
Yeah.
you're not back yet. Hold on. We're having some technical difficulties. It's okay. It's a podcast. It's on the web. We have technical difficulties. It's awesome. You're watching which mummy though? The Brendan Fraser mummy or the
Of course, the Brandon Fraser Mummy. The other ones aren't even a thing.
Are
Oh,
you back?
Let me.
You're back.
yes, you are
You're
back.
Don't touch anything.
So I know what it is. It's because, oh geez, yeah, it's because again, new webcam. The webcam's got a mic, and I've got a mic, and I think it freaked out on which mic to use. So okay, you hear me? I'm good.
Yeah, no, we can hear you now. We're back from what were we doing before we started recording the podcast conversation during the brief technical intermission?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So what was I even asking?
We're talking about editing.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, you as a writer, what are your little quirks that you have? Your editors themselves go, hey, fun story.
So almost universally, so I overwrite. I write over long. So I get editors generally trim a lot of little things. Almost universally, I've literally written like 5 or 6 books where the editor went just cut the entire first chapter.
Oh wow.
Because like I will get sometimes in like, oh, I've got to, especially when fantasy, science fiction, all that requires exposition. You're introducing people to this strange new world, and early on, especially, I was bad about like, oh man, they're not going to understand this unless I get these 7 concepts like ASAP, and then that's of course really bad to do that. That's just super info dumpy.
Gosh.
It would often be like, okay, you don't need any of this exposition. Cut it all. Here's where the action starts here. And then just work some of that in like these like 5 other chapters over time. I've gotten better about that, but obviously, but it's still a problem sometimes. Like they need to know, and the editor's like, no, they don't need to know. And it's worse is that like I do the same thing. Like when I'm editing, someone else is doing that same thing. I will say almost the exact same things. Like cut the first chapter, explain it through the book. But I still sometimes do it myself. So that's my biggest flaws tend to be I overwrite. I just kind of keep going when I should stop. And really bad first chapters.
Interesting. What about dialogue? How do you feel about your dialogue?
Well, apparently like my dialogue, so I'm gonna have to go with that. I feel like I do good dialogue. People tell me I do good dialogue. That rarely gets changed. The only time I've had significant dialogue edits in recent past is just actually, ironically, with Goddess Tier, because so I just assumed like, okay, well, this is going to be like, we want this to be all ages. I figured. So I'm like, I was very careful to be like, we're not going to use swears. We're going to kind of, even though like, the main character, she's a angry, earthy, wandering barbarian type. We're gonna be clean with the language and all that. And like Elman's like, because he read it first. He is not like my official editor, but he also read through everything. He's like, dialogue's fine, but like, you could, shouldn't like, be using some like stronger language here. I'm like, I thought we weren't. Like, no. Don't go like, don't drop multiple F. Don't like, don't use fuck every other sentence. But no, you can like use all sorts of like, oh, I can.
I was gonna say, how the hell do you write a barbarian that's like, pardon me, I was dissuaded by that part of our interaction?
Excuse me, sir. Well, I am very disagreeable right now.
Well, no. I obviously didn't go like full scholar like BS language, but like, just like, don't use like shit and fuck and damn and all that sort of thing. So I was like, not like. So it was more like, oh, so I can use like curses and like, well, here we go. Let's revamp all this dialogue. So yeah. I just thought, is going to be all ages, and it's all ages. You gotta you get your PG-13. You can use your shits and shit like that, but you get your maybe one F bomb, but no, no,
The
I
prize
was mistaken.
F-bomb amongst the other
I
words.
never get to use the F-bomb.
You wanted to write young adult. That's what happens when you write young adult. You don't get to
like
write
young
F-bomb.
adults don't drop the F-bomb.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the thing. Honestly though, young adult and new adult are really weird genres to me anymore. Like with all the rise of your Twilight and all that stuff. I will refrain from disparaging authors where I can. But it's so changed. I feel like you can get away with so much more in young adult now than you previously could.
It is insane. Some of the things you read in young adult, I'm like, dude, I wouldn't even I don't feel like I'm mature enough to read this. How are you throwing this in young adult?
I
think it more comes down to how I don't want to say when you go mainstream, but mainstream young adult is very different because publishers have their little rules and their little boxes they think everybody should follow. I say that as a publisher, but I don't have those rules or boxes. But I do know that, there are definite things that you can do, and then there are absolutely hard no's when it comes to young adult. You can indicate that this thing happened, but you shouldn't actually be saying what happened. And where you get backlash is actually parents. That's where the backlash comes from, is the parents freaking out about what you're saying and stuff like that.
Without thinking that, little Timmy was already cursing up a storm in the back room. I did not help him do that.
Well, it's interesting is because you have I grew up on the Xantha novels, and I was there when Spellfire was released, which is a Dungeons and Dragons novel for anybody who doesn't know. It was the first Ed Greenwood Forgotten Realms book, but reading those, they didn't have that stuff. But I read Harlequin romance books and stuff that my grandmother had, all that kind of stuff. Kids do read it. I think it's more, again, protection for a company and this parental thing. Now it's the borders are very, very blurry. But if you're going to say
blurry,
super blurry, but if you're going to say it's a young adult book, it's a young adult book. Let's talk about where you write and what your writing environment is like, because COVID happened, so that changed a lot of things for a lot of us because we're all locked inside buildings now. Well, kind of. We're in Florida, so not as much, just because. But what is your writing environment like? Where do you write the best?
I literally, my bedroom is also my office. I literally roll out of bed and just go right to work. I mean, I never wrote much out and around even before COVID. So not really, that was not a disruption. I will say COVID hurt my production, I would say a good bit, but I think that's more the mental and emotional stuff as opposed to physical environment change.
No, I think that's true for a lot of writers. I mean, I talk about this regularly on the show. Some people, it was fantastic. I talked to an author the other day, and she wrote 5 books last year.
That's more like that's more like my usual year, not like
and
this year.
She was like, it was so productive. And then I've talked to people that are like, I got nothing done. I think there's definitely a balance. Do you listen to music when you're writing?
Oh, always. I mean, I feel like you can't. I know some people, obviously not everyone listens to music, but I really have to. I need that.
What kind of music?
It'll generally actually change a lot based on what I'm writing. It's something that's always I have to avoid things with lyrics because lyrics will start to I will honestly sometimes get too caught up singing along with something if it's really catchy and I'm not writing and my language center can't divide its attention that much. But generally instrumental stuff that matches the genre or feel that I'm going for,
techno or classical.
Depends on the thing. There are if it's more dramatic, emotional scenes, some good classical or and if it's hard hitting action scenes, like instrumental, like metal or techno or soundtracks, actually are really amazing. Well,
You ever go
soundtracks.
find those playlists on like action movie playlist, and you just, or high adventure playlist, 8 hours on YouTube, and just let it go?
I haven't done that yet because I just feel like what one person's feeling of what is high adventure is not always what everyone's feeling of high adventure is.
No, it's true, but I'll tell you, you'll find some lists on there that'll just go, depending on how long you're able to sit and write for hours and hours and hours in the background.
I should look into those. Like, I have also sometimes, like, if there's like a song I really like, especially if it's like an instrumental, I find often you can find this with music from like certain TV shows and anime and movies. You get like the 10 hour of this one song on repeat. I find some of those actually really work for me.
Like of this single or of like the whole series?
Just of the one song.
Okay, when was the last song you did this with?
Yeah, I gotta know.
I would say, let me make sure it's the right one. Jet Say Run or You Say Run from My Hero Academia. I think it's Jet Set Run. All right, listen to the opening. Yes, You Say Run. It is a instrumental track from My Hero Academia, and it's just
I hate.
super catchy.
I'm just not a fan of that particular anime.
That's fine. I actually haven't watched it since like season 3, and I know there's been like a ton of other seasons, and I like the first season was a hard sell. Like the very beginning, I'm like, this is like, and then it really caught me around like by the end of season 1, and then by the end of season 3, I was starting to like get off the wagon again. It's one of those like, but.
So what do you do when you get writer's block?
Ooh, good question. Because that's the question I've had plenty of writers ask me what to do when they have writer's block. My solution generally is I will stop what I'm doing and then take a break. Generally, I will like purposely go consume some media. I'll play one of your more interactive video games or RPGs. I will watch an episode from a TV show or something that will try, something that still keeps like the creative parts of my brain active because it's something interesting, but is not dwelling on the problem I'm having. That usually like gives a moment for like things to congeal and sort of like suss out what to do. If that doesn't work, I will actually, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just can't, don't know how to solve this problem. I will go talk to some of my other friends that do writing, even if it's I will talk to some of my other creative friends and just go, here's the situation, and here's what I'm running into. And half the time, just the process of talking about it, or talking through it with someone, even if all they're doing is listening, it's just like, okay, keep going. 90% of the time, it works out just through the act of communicating the problem of someone else.
Okay.
No, I think that is one of the most useful tools. I say that all the time to the writers we work with and stuff, is let us be your muses, not your muses that we're going to sit here and solve your whole entire plot line, but tell us the thing and we'll just start spitting out ideas or things.
Yes.
And you can use none of what comes out of our mouths, but if it frees up whatever in your brain that goes, yep, I'm back on track, I know where to go, that's what you should do. I think writers don't utilize this enough. It's not like you have to keep it secret and safe.
Right, they don't. As a matter of fact, that's actually something we often have to. I often tell the writers I'm working with as an editor is like, sometimes you either need to talk to me and if you have a problem, run it by me, or just like, or if like you're like second guessing something you wrote, stop, send it to me. I will tell you if it's wrong, because writers, I know I have this problem. I think by the very nature of being most creatives have this problem, is we are our own worst enemies. we are super critical of our own work. We always think, I can make that just a little better. And the point is, there is a limit to that. There really is. Um, the business side of the people I work with often referred to as the 80-20 rule, which is it takes a lot of effort to take. If let's say a writer gets like it's 80% good, 80-90% good, somewhere in that range, there is way more energy and time invested to try to get it that extra like 10% that 90%, that 80 to 90% of readers won't even notice. I mean, they just,
Yeah, like the little hints you're trying to drop and like those types of things. I could see that because you spend a lot of time thinking that the people that are reading your book are going to be like, yep, they remember the red shirt that I made a point to mention, and they're like, yeah, I have no idea that they were wearing a shirt.
Yeah, and you should keep, obviously you want to keep details like that consistent, but like if you spend all your time fretting and rewriting and trying to refine the scene that is already really good. There's a particular writer I work with that's a real perfectionist, and it's like just. There's only one time it's like they delivered like the tail, the end part of a manuscript. They're like, "This is horrible. This is just. You're gonna tell me to rewrite it all, and I should have already written it, but I know really near deadline, so just here it is." And I'm like, "This is really good. You did not need to worry about this." And 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 they do this continuously, and again, it's just like frustrating because you're like, just let me read your words.
What about you? Do you find yourself doing that?
I do, but because I've seen it so often in others, I detect it. I'm like, I just send this to somebody else. If I get to the point where I'm like, I should rewrite that, I stop myself and please, someone else take a look at this before I mess it up.
Do you have characters that you've written yourself that you can't stand? Like even as you're writing them, you're like, this fucking guy.
Define as in, do I dislike them as a person or dislike them as a writer?
No, like just like I have a character in one of my stories, and like every time I have to write something, like he's important to the story, but I'm just like, oh, this freaking, whatever. And it's just because like I know what's gonna happen. So I'm like, he's, whatever. Like, do you have those moments when you're writing where you're like, really don't like you, but we're gonna keep going with you?
Oh yeah, I mean obviously sometimes because a good antagonist is a really good antagonist, someone you want to hate. And I like to write, I've written some real fuckers that are like,
exactly.
I cannot wait until you get your comeuppance in a couple of chapters.
So what about fans? Let's talk about fans for a minute before we have to wrap. You were at Pensacon.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like interacting with fans now that you're on the other side of the table?
Well, to start, when I first started, my first couple of cons, it was nerve-wracking. Obviously, because especially the hardest part about being an author at a convention, at least I guess someone, especially those of us that are just starting out, that are like down in the trenches, not like your like big, your A-listers, but like C and D and C-listers and stuff, is you're both salesmen and you have to both be a salesperson, which most authors are really bad at. And just because many of us creators are very introverted. I've seen it kind of go two ways, where it's like people who are so introverted they hide behind their wall of books, and they're the writers. You find that booth in like an artist alley where like there's the books piled up to like about here, and they're sitting behind in their desk. It's very they're sitting in a chair behind their table, eyes sort of downcast, and hope, and just not good at this social interaction thing. And then you have the opposite end where you have the ones that are like carnival barking, which is also bad. There's sort of an intermediary level where you are open and approachable without like sounding like a used car salesman. But that's very difficult. It's like not hard. That's very hard. Very nervous making. People say that I am good with people, but I am very introvert as far as like dealing with people for extended periods of times like drains me like no belief. Like after a con, I hide in my room for a week.
No, I
From
think a lot
everyone.
of people don't realize that when you're doing stuff like that, you're on. I do a ton of public speaking and stuff like that. And even after years and years of doing public speaking and not getting nervous in front of crowds, and I don't have that. Like, you can put me in front of any large group and be like, talk about this. And I'll be like, okay, cool. But you're on, and there's energy exuded when you're on. And if you're talking to people and talking about your books, especially if you already have any other social whatevers, even for me, I get exhausted. Like, I'll do a 2-hour event, and to me, I'm like, then I'm done for the whole day. Like, don't, I want to go sit down and play, Animal Farm and stuff. Like, that's what I want to go do, because I don't want to interact with another thing. Like, I want to have it come the opposite way. It's like watching TV, kind of like, I don't want to, nope, I want to just rest.
Yeah, for sure. But dealing with fans, I mean, it's always it's a treat, honestly, because like it's one thing to get like an online review, even a really positive one. Those are nice. They feel good, but it doesn't match someone who just literally comes up. And I've slowly started to get this over like my years, where like someone goes, it's him, and then they rush over, and their eyes are bright, and they've got one of your old books clutched in their hands, and are like, is there a new one, or what's your latest book, or I'm so excited, what new do you have this year? And I mean, it's a high that's hard to beat, honestly. It really is. It makes it, I don't want this to sound, this may come off as egotistical or self-centered, but I don't think it will, but it might, because I've been drinking alcohol. But
that's okay. And you're doing a lot of preface. There's now a lot of pressure on whatever you're about.
Right. It better be super egotistical at this point.
It won't be. I have a bad habit of doing this, of prefacing when I don't need to preface.
You mean like the first? Can you cut the first chapter and get to part of the story?
Yes, exactly. But it is. I even remember what I was going to say. Did I preface so long I forgot what I was going to say? There is. There's definitely. Oh God, I forgot.
Oh. Wow, we went on a long journey, and
it was going to be deep. I promise it was deep. Just think of a deep thing. Everyone who's watching,
everybody
think
close
of a
your
very
eyes
deep,
for a moment.
think deep and profound, and then that's what I was going to say.
Love it.
It was so
perfect.
Deep.
Perfect.
It went above and beyond.
Okay. So, CR, I'm going to let you have the last question before we have to wrap up this episode.
Let's see.
Make sure it's not deep. We can't go profound. We're already at the closet door, so let's.
Yeah,
right, and we don't want to go too dark, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. No. What is the one thing you will be on a roll when you're writing? What is the one thing that could immediately stop you in your tracks and like lose the whole thing?
Oh, that's simple. A ping in my editing inbox.
Like you can hear the ding in your ear from your email and you're done.
Because I'm like, oh, what did somebody do? Because generally, if I generally, most of the authors I work with, send me periodic stuff, and that's one thing, but not the email inbox, but like the publishing company chat system. Like we use Google for the back end, so it's got GChat and all that stuff. When the chat room goes off, because that means 90% of the time a writer going, I have either done something really wrong or something has gone really wrong. JB, please come help me. And I'm like, ugh. And half the time it's not. It really isn't. It's just that is the Pavlovian response of that ding means trouble.
Oh wow!
And
I could see that. That would do it.
And I switch from writer to editor, and then it takes a little time to like. If it wasn't a major emergency, it takes some time for like. there is unfortunately no Pavlovian switch that switches the brain back to writer mode.
That's true.
Okay, as we wrap up, what advice would you give authors out there?
Are we
Other
talking
than cutting the first chapter so we don't lose the story?
The advice the big advice I would give is making it as an author of any stripe is 90% persistence.
Very true.
Because you're going to face a lot of rejection, a lot of people telling you that you're wrong, that you're bad, that your ideas stink, and some of those might be true, but most of them are, a lot of them really are people that don't, what people have a hard time saying exactly what is wrong when they see something that doesn't click with them. So they're just going to tell you that it's bad. They won't tell you what it is that put them off, and it may be nothing. It may be just, I don't like pirate novels. They wrote a pirate novel. So that means it's bad, it's horrible, you should stop writing. Because they don't know how to communicate. So you just have to realize sometimes you just got to keep going. You got to keep trying. The only way, if you are bad, it's the only way to get better. And if you're good, it's the only way to get people to pay attention to you. You can't just give up. Because there's millions and millions of people writing books right now. And there are millions and millions and millions of books just on Amazon that are vying for attention. So if you fail, you brush yourself off and you write the next one. All you can do.
I like it. Okay.
I like
You'll
it.
eventually break through.
How do people find you?
They can find me either I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, of course. The easiest way, if you want to read my books, is just go to Amazon and go show me JB Garner, and my author page is there. It has all of my personally written books in it. If you're looking, if someone is, I don't have a lot of freelance editing time anymore, as I am under several long-term contracts. But if you present me a really strong case and really interesting, I might. It's like the 18. If you if it's a case that really interests me, I might still be for hire. You can contact me at my email, which is jbgarner58@gmail.com. Otherwise, yeah, Amazon, Twitter, and Facebook are my main social medias. And I think I sent that to you guys. So I think
You did. It will be in the podcast notes.
So, cool.
But for those people that don't actually read the podcast notes and are just listening, I figured I'd give them the avenue.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So on Twitter, I am. I always want to make sure I get these right. At Twitter, I am at JBGarner_writes. I am actually probably more prolific on Twitter than anything else, which is insane because it's a very crazy platform. On Facebook, come on, Facebook, load. Get my author page.
I love that he's looking this up on the computer as we're doing this.
Yeah, I don't have the.
I have to do that too. I have to do that all the time.
Memorize this stuff. You should know it off the top of your head.
Well, some of them are like, you have to have like it's taken. So like, I'm
interesting entering variations.
Right. So like I'm CR Rice author, but then like on Instagram or something, it's author CR Rice because apparently there's a CR Rice author, which if you look, there's not, but it's fine.
But they thought there was. On Facebook, I'm at JB Garner Writes no underscore. So it's just one word, JB Garner Writes. And yeah, and obviously Amazon, you're just gonna look up my name, type it in. I am the only JB Garner. No, I'm actually not. I am the only JB Garner that is alive. Ironically,
are you killing the rest of them? What is happening? We're trying to wrap up the show, and you're admitting to murder. What's going on here?
No, the other James B. Garner that wrote was the movie actor.
Oh.
Maverick, Rockford Files, that sort of thing. Which is really.
You're in good company then. I see.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well. It has been amazing to have you. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
No. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me.
Absolutely. Okay, this has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host has been C.R. Rice, and our guest has been the amazing J.B. Garner, and we will see you next time.